Assalamualaikum and welcome to our presentation on the impact of power, authority and legitimacy on human rights. This is a comparative analysis on democratic and authoritarian political systems.
I would like to introduce our group members, which includes me, Azmi bin Michael Aiman, with the matrix number of 2024-241098, and Farah Farzana binti Azimuddin with the student ID of 2024-210838, and also Nur Inshira binti Azlin with the student ID of 2024-681296.
So what is power, authority and legitimacy? Power, authority and legitimacy in political science are the concepts that shape a political system in a governance. First, power is the ability of an individual to make others do something either through cooperation or by force. The five sources of power are the expert power, the coercive power, the reward power, the legitimate power, and the referent power. Next, authority is the legitimization given to exercise power. Authority is derived from traditions like the monarchy system, charisma of a leader figure, and legal rationale through appointment by law such as the prime minister position. Lastly, legitimacy is the right to act given by the acceptance from majority. Legitimacy is obtained through the result from performance, habit, procedures, and the historical, religious, and ethnic identity similarities. In addition to that, according to John Locke's two treatises of government, political legitimacy is consent given by the governed. Therefore, if the consent is lost, then the government may be removed.
Now, I would like to elaborate my part of the presentation, which is the historical background. The first point we're tackling is historical perspectives. In history, philosophers argued that government needs the consent of the people and must protect human dignity. These ideas shaped modern human rights, especially during the Enlightenment. After World War II, the global standard shifted with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which stated that respecting basic rights is essential for a government to be legitimate. Over time, the democracies gradually incorporated human rights into their legal systems, while authoritarian regimes often resisted those rights but sometimes adopted democratic
language
to maintain a sense of legitimacy. My next point is the democratic governments and human rights. In democracies, authority comes from the people through elections and legal systems. Power is balanced through independent courts and institutions that prevent abuse. Free media, civil society, and public participation help expose human rights violations. Strong democracies tend to protect civil liberties like free speech, fair trials, and freedom of assembly. Not to mention, they are also most likely to respond to international human rights expectations and use them to strengthen their legitimacy. Followed by that is the authoritarian and human rights. This is to say that authoritarian regimes concentrates power in the hands of a few and often manipulate the law to stay in control. Courts and legislature are usually under the leader's influence. In these systems, freedom of speech, press and protest are often restricted. Dissent is punished and citizens may face unfair treatment. These governments justify their power using ideology, nationalism, or promises of the economic growth at the expense of human rights. Besides that is the comparative impact on human rights. All in all, democracies with legal checks and public accountabilities are more effective at protecting human rights, as power is limited and legitimacy is based on public consent. In contrast, authoritarian systems use force and control to stay in power, and their legitimacy is often based on ideology or economic performance. This leads to more frequent violations of rights. Some governments fall in between, showing a mix of elections and repression. In these cases, human rights protections are often unstable and depend on political pressure rather than law.
Impacts of power, authority, and legitimacy on human rights. Power, authority, and legitimacy are the essentials in shaping how a government operates and how it treats its people. If used appropriately, it will promote political stability, protect human rights, and create a peaceful society. On the contrary, abuse of these concepts may lead to public distrust, discriminations, and widespread corruptions. A fair and well-structured division of power in the Constitution encourages citizens to obey the law. When the government is seen as legitimate and just, it earns the trust and support of the people. This trust fosters respect between government and the citizens, as well as strengthen diplomatic relationships between countries. Power, authority, and legitimacy in democratic system. Democracy is seen as the most fair system due to its check and balance foundation, which ensure equality and prevent power to be misused. Most democratic countries separate power between three branches: legislative, executive, and judiciary, in order to balance power and authority. Examples of democratic countries are Malaysia, Indonesia, France, USA, and South Korea. This system promotes freedom of expression in criticizing the governments and gives people the power to vote their leader. Hence, it is more favorable as it creates better life and security for the citizens. This is how the three branches separate and use their power. The legislative body is known as the lawmaker. Laws are discussed, amended and made in the parliament, a place where representatives voice out the concerns and interests of their people. They also oversee the implementations of law by approving budgets and debating the actions of the government, while the executive branch are the enforcer of laws and responsible in protecting national security by managing domestic and foreign affairs. The actors include our prime minister or president along with the assist of the cabinet's members. They must act according to the constitutions because they are held accountable to the legislative branch and also the courts. While the judiciary is mostly independent in order to prevent decision making from political influence. Hence, the people that are responsible are chief justice and judges. They are needed to ensure laws are applied fairly and to defend human rights. Regardless the status of a person, the judiciary must guarantee that no one is above the law. Now, let's discuss power, authority, and legitimacy in authoritarian system. Authoritarian is a system where power is centralized and the people are denied basic rights such as freedom of speech, voting, or even opposing the government. The rise of this system threatens democracy as the regimes are becoming skilled in undermining democratic elements such as avoiding check and balance foundation. Authority of this system often comes from force or dynastic rule rather than laws, while the legitimacy usually claimed through fear, propaganda, nationalism, or economic success. In this system, nobody holds real power except the supreme leader, and citizens are forced to obey the laws he made. Any objections may face imprisonment, violence, or even judicial homicide. Examples of the countries that practices these laws are North Korea, Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia, in which they are limited to their human rights according to the constitutions.
In the final analysis, the concepts of power, authority, and legitimacy are evidently vital principles to uphold human rights in different political systems. Due to this, these concepts may have different impacts on human rights in democratic and authoritarian political systems. In democratic systems, human rights are protected and upheld when power is about taking accountability, authority is a recognition of power, and legitimacy is given by majority acceptance. On the contrary, human rights are faced with regression in authoritarian system when coercive power, violation, and neglect of the public are being practiced. Thus, this analysis report was done to study and understand the impact of these concepts in different political systems in alignment with identifying the best political systems for a good governance.
That's all from us. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye bye!